9 months ago, I had not made a dime in real estate. No lending business, no wholesale business, no nothing. But to date, I now have a decently successful lending business that I'm running. And so in this video, I want to teach you the exact steps I would take to rebuild my lending business from scratch, starting from nothing, but with all the lessons that I've learned over the last 9 months. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Ryan, and I'm just a guy that has a lending business and is trying to teach other people how to do what I did, in case you care. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the exact steps I would take to rebuild my business from scratch with the lessons I've learned, and I'm going to be doing that using a 5-step process that we're just going to go ahead and get started with. So the first thing, and a very big one for everybody to understand that's watching this video, is the different types of lending. And there's no way that I can even cover them all in just one video, but I want to just get started here. Types of lending. So right off the bat, if you guys are watching this video, you probably know that I do a lot of EMD lending, right? EMD, earnest money deposit. So we're going to put that right here, EMD. Now, there is a lot of other forms of lending. One of the ones that people confuse me with all the time, which is fine, is PML. PMLs are private money lenders. Now, this term can be money lenders. This term can be a bit ambiguous, some might say, because technically any money that's being lent is private money lending. So when we say PML, what do we mean? Well, in my circle, what we're talking about with a PML is long-term, right? 1+ years and lower returns. Why is that? Well, PMLs, typically speaking, are either newer to real estate or aren't in real estate at all. So if you look at the properties that we buy, we're typically going to bring somebody in maybe that has a high-paying job, doesn't know anything about real estate, just wants their money to work for them. That's a PML, okay? Longer term, we've got EMD, which is super short term. You can watch plenty of my videos about it, short term and high returns. But if you guys have gotten into what we would call transactional lending, which is what we're going to be talking about today, there's more than just these two types of lending, even though these are the two types I get hit up for all the time, right? So again, I can't cover everything, but here's a couple of the other ones. You might see some gap lending, some bridge lending, or what we would call bridge loans. And let's throw on here double closing. Oh, can't spell. It's okay. Double closing. Fantastic. So this is a couple more options that you're going to see in the lending community. To go over those really briefly, double closing. If you're a wholesaler, if you know a wholesaler, sometimes instead of assigning a contract, they'll do what's called a double close, where you close one deal and then immediately jump over and close the second one. Now, although I do help with funding double closings, I don't know a whole lot about them, and I don't talk about stuff I don't know. So that's the extent of my knowledge on double closing. That's the vibe. If you want a really quick analogy, it would be an A to B contract and a B to C contract. Now, there's also gap lending and bridge loans, right? And both of those things are usually, honestly, exactly what they sound like, right? So gap lending is usually funding a little bit of a gap. If you look at, for example, somebody's going to do a fix and flip and their hard money lender is going to come in and fund the renovation, but the funds don't clear until next week, right? And they need the funds today for whatever reason. They got to pay the contractor. They got to get the ball rolling. Maybe they got to close on the property before the other funds are ready. They got a little bit of a gap, right? They got a little bit of gap that needs to be funded. And so gap lending is the process of basically funding that gap. It might be like, hey man, in 2 weeks, I've got this money coming in. Here's my proof. I just need somebody to cover the gap until I get there. Perfecto. We'll do some gap lending for you. Then we got bridge loans. Bridge loans, in my experience so far, is typically, again, on like fix and flips, right? So bridge loan would be, hey, my hard money lender is covering 75% of the ARV of the house, or I guess they wouldn't do that, right? 75% of the purchase price. Somebody that does stuff like that and flips houses, let me know in the comments. But I think it's 75% of the purchase price. So then you've got this other chunk of money that you're going to need. And there's a couple options. One is the PML, which is usually longer term. But oftentimes you're just going to work with somebody that can do a bridge loan to just bridge that period that needs money. So this might be like that extra 25% plus some rehab costs, or maybe rehab's covered by the lender. It really just depends. But point is, you want to establish this first, right? So if you're getting started, not only should you be listening to what I have to say, you should be looking all this stuff up, right? Go on YouTube, go online, read some books about it, whatever. Understand what they all mean, all right? Because when somebody comes into your DMs and says, hey man, I need my EMD funded, and you're like, sick, that's awesome. And they're like, yeah, I need $100,000 for 6 months. Those don't equate, but people that are newer might think they do, and that's okay. You just need to understand the difference, right? So I have that all the time. People are like, yo, I heard you fund EMD. Can you fund this mansion I'm buying? And I'm like, ooh, yeah, that's not what I do. But that's okay because I understood the difference. So step one, building a lending business, is understand the different types of lending. And you can see I'm not perfect, big shocker, because I don't even know that much about this stuff, right? To be totally honest with you, I've focused so heavily on this that I'm just now starting to learn about some of these other things. It comes with experience, it comes with networking. But I am telling you now, based on what I've learned, that you should. Why? Because these are great forms of lending too. And up until now, I've rejected any requests for these types of loans because I just wanted to stay laser focused and I honestly didn't know what the heck they were talking about, right? Just letting you know. So if you do know what they're talking about, you could potentially make some money. You don't just have to lend EMD like I do, because I'm expanding into this stuff now too. Because why the heck would you pass up a good opportunity just because you don't know how to do it? That's kind of stupid, right? So what am I saying? I'm telling you, understand your types of lending. Understand the different types of lending that are going down here so that you are well prepared for what the heck is going on, and you can take advantage when somebody reaches out. You can take advantage when you reach out to people yourself, and you can just be knowledgeable, because if you're not knowledgeable on the stuff you're talking about, you are not going to be selling people. That is for dang sure. Now the next one, and we might hang out here for a little bit because this is incredibly important. Number 2 is identify your target. Identify your target. What do I mean by this? Your target audience, right? If you're making YouTube videos, if you're trying to sell something, whatever the heck it is, when you are marketing to people, you shouldn't be marketing to people that have nothing to do with it, right? If you're going out trying to sell surfboards and you're talking to a bunch of old people that live in Wisconsin or the middle of the country, that's not the right market, okay? Random analogy. I come up with some random analogies, huh? But identify your target, okay? So in these things, right, in real estate in general, you're going to be lending for one of two people, right? Either number 1, a wholesaler, or number 2, a buyer. Technically speaking, that's really the only types of people that you could fund in real estate. They're either wholesaling the deal or buying it, because you wouldn't be funding this for a seller, right? Check me on that. I think I'm right. Wholesaler and buyer. That's the only two things. So if you are identifying your target, first of all, you want to not only identify is your target a wholesaler, is your target a buyer, is your target both, but you want to understand the differences between the two. So I'm actually going to separate these out and just start with the wholesaler, right? So wholesalers, what do they have? What do they need? Well, typically a wholesaler is not going to need gap funding. They're not going to need a bridge loan. They're not going to need a private money lender. Why? Because they're not the ones taking down the deal. So no post-close expenses are going to come up with a wholesaler. That's for a later time. We'll talk about that later. Wholesalers, typically, they either don't need any money at all, or more commonly, they're going to need EMD, of course. Right? And EMD is what they use to lock down the contract. And so wholesalers are the main target for EMD, because every single wholesaler has some sort of EMD. If you do direct to seller stuff, it might be like $10, and you probably don't need to get that funded, Lord willing. But every wholesaler has EMD, and it goes from as little as $10, like I said, up into the hundreds of thousands and even millions of dollars on bigger projects. So wholesalers need EMD. You can identify that and recognize that that's something you're going to be pitching, right? If you go to a networking event and you meet a wholesaler, you know, wholesaler, EMD. Nice to meet you. I fund EMD. What do you do for your EMD funding right now? Really easy conversation to have. You don't have to be pushy. Just put it out there, right? That's what I did. So wholesalers need EMD. That's identifying your target. That is the only type of funding that a wholesaler would need. That's it. They either need EMD or they don't need EMD. Super cut and dry. Very simple. The only other thing that could be added to this would be a double close, right? Which I briefly mentioned earlier. Double close. And that is, like I said, if a wholesaler, instead of doing an assignment contract, they actually do a separate contract and they close on the house twice. They close with the seller and then immediately close with their end buyer. Then the wholesaler is going to reach out to you for double closing funds, okay? And double closing is typically going to be way more because you're going to be covering the entire purchase, right? So if it's a $500,000 house, double closing would require you to bring the entire $500,000 liquid, and immediately that money is then going to be replaced by the end buyer, okay? So it's interesting how that stuff works on a double close. But those are the two things that a wholesaler needs. Double closings, great for funding. EMD, great for funding, okay? So we've identified our first target is wholesalers and what they need. Now let's jump into buyers real quick and talk about what they need and why it might be different. So when you are talking with buyers, you're talking to people that are acquiring real estate, right? In a couple ways. In my groups, typically it's either buy and hold rentals, whether it's a creative deal or seller finance deal or whatever. They're buying a house that way, or they're doing a fix and flip where they're buying cash, usually with a hard money lender or something like that, and they might need other things. So let's talk about both of those examples. If it's somebody that's buying a turnkey property, there's a couple things they might ask you for. First of all, our El Clasico EMD. They also might need a PML, right? They're buying this property. It's $50,000 down payment. They want to bring somebody in that's going to be willing to lend to them for at least a year, usually more like 3, 4, 5 years plus on the property, where they'll pay that PML interest every month. And that's the type of loan that they'll request to you. So if you are interested in doing that, you should do it. But if you're doing transactional lending and someone reaches out and says, hey, I need $50K for a down payment, you can recognize, right, because of step number 1, you can recognize, oh, wait a second, that's not what I do, right? And the quicker you recognize that, the quicker you can weed out opportunities that are not for you, and then you can stay focused and you can do much better, okay? So EMD and PML, that is what a regular buyer would ask for. And then like we talked about before, you can also have your gap funding, and your bridge loans. And this is going to be more for our flippers. And those are just a couple more loans that I've already talked about that they might need. So buyers. Why are buyers not my ideal person to lend to? Well, I've talked about this before. I'm going to be talking about it some more in my safety videos and safety webinars that are coming up. But the EMD for buyers is typically what we would call non-refundable. Refundable. And if the money is non-refundable, then as it states, that means you ain't getting a refund on it. So if I lend you $5,000 and then that money falls through for whatever reason, the deal falls through, something like that, blah, 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 money's gone. And now that buyer is screwed because they got to pay you back out of their own pocket. They got to figure out how to pay you back. You guys have contracts signed, no fun, okay? So typically speaking, I'm not working on EMD with end buyers. PML, personally, I just don't do that because I find that PML, like I discussed earlier, is usually for people that are a little bit less experienced, that just want to kind of put their money over there and let it work for them. I will let you know that when I become rich and famous and make a bunch of money, I'll probably become PML because then you can chill and do whatever the heck you want. So if you're in that position, I wouldn't even do any of this other stuff because that sounds way better. Just my opinion. And then gap funding and bridge loans, I will do gap funding and bridge loans depending on the deals because gap funding and bridge loans are protected. So what's the difference? You might be asking. So EMD, this is, I'll put an arrow up here. This is pre-close. And then these guys are post-close. I'm writing vertically. I'm sure that's fantastic for your eyes to be reading on the screen right now. But these two are post-close. This is pre-close. Why does it matter? Pre-closing means there is no asset, right? So if I land on EMD and something goes wrong, the asset is gone. It never actually got acquired. So there's nothing to back my money with. These guys are post-close. That means the asset has been purchased. Therefore, when you lend on these guys, you would place what's called a lien on the property, right? You would place a lien on the property, and that would be backing your money. That would be saying, hey, if something goes wrong, it's not just going to disappear into thin air. I've got a hard asset, right? I've got this house over here, post-close. I've got a house to back it with. So these loans are good. This loan's kind of scary. This kind of loan is not for me. Got it? That is identifying our target. We've got wholesalers, we've got buyers. Each one of them needs different things. They're all great. You can fund all of them. You have to figure out what fits for you specifically. But if you're watching this video, as I'm erasing this, what I'll tell you is just because one of these methods doesn't work for you, doesn't mean you can connect with somebody that it works for. Very important, right? So that's something I was missing, right? And I'm trying to tell you guys, if I was starting from zero, I would pay better attention to this stuff. If you don't do double closings, you don't have to just say, whoa, yeah, I don't do double closings. Go find somebody that does double closings, connect the two people, and then what do? First of all, you make money as a connector. You make money off of the process. But the second one is if that person needed money and you know somebody that can help fund them and you can put the two together, then you're just helping a brother out. And that's fantastic. Like if you know something that somebody else doesn't know and you can put two and two together, that is sweet. That is the fun part of business. So take advantage of that. Recognize that just because something isn't for you doesn't mean it can't be done, and move forward just like that. Okay, so far we've figured out all the different types of lending, which I forgot to erase, and we've identified our targets, right? We've got our wholesalers and our buyers. We know what those different types of people need. You can now go out and identify those different things so that you understand them well. Now, on to step number 3. This is probably the most important step. I've made multiple videos about it, and it is by far the question that I get the most about, and that is our good old friend, leads. Now, if you guys hear me talking in this video, you've noticed I haven't mentioned anything about money yet, okay? We'll get there, but not yet. We're still on leads. If you haven't checked out $100 Million Leads from Alex Hormozi, you should check it out because it's probably one of the best books ever written. And that's what we're going to be talking about. Why? Because, as you've probably heard me say before, if you're not new here, leads are the commodity, okay? Money is not the commodity over leads in these situations, because if you have leads, money will come. I can promise you that, all right? And I would do things the exact same way I did before if I was to do it again. And I want to break that down for you guys in as much detail as I can. So leads, what are they? Obviously, they are people who need money. They need lending. They need your services. The two types of leads, we already identified them, wholesalers and buyers. How do you bring them in? Well, first of all, big star, networking, okay? Why is this so important? If you guys are watching this video and you've been watching all my other videos and watching other people's videos, but you haven't been to your local real estate meetup, you're not going to find many leads. Sorry, but that's just how it is. Real estate is a relational business. And most of the people that I lend for, I have a personal relationship with these people, whether it was from prior or whether it's from just lending on deals with them. I've formed those relationships, and that's where my leads come from. You gotta network. You just have to. It's literally everything in real estate. But on top of that, I want to talk to you about the process that I follow from the $100 Million Leads book. I've made a video about this before, and I want to go a little more in depth. It's a multi-step process, and it goes warm leads, and then cold leads. Number 2, pay attention to our order here. And then number 3, free content. And then number 4 is paid ads, which I have not done. So I won't be talking about it, but I can talk about the other 3. Warm leads. This one gets skipped over, like every time. And I think I know the reason why. And this is something I haven't brought before. I think the reason that I keep telling people to reach out to warm leads and they don't do it is because they don't have any warm leads. Does that sound like you? Because if it does, guess what you got to do? You got to go create some warm leads. You can't jump to the cold lead step right away and expect to do as well as people that don't do it. Now, can you still make money? Sure. You can make money in a million ways. It's called getting lucky. Woo! But we're trying to do this in a way that actually has a solid foundation so that you can continue to grow. And that means you need warm leads. Why? Because warm leads is somebody you already have a relationship with and you already know what those people are doing. So you're not just randomly reaching out to people that are going to ignore you. You're saying, hey bro, we were on the phone last week talking about this project. I'm curious, what does this look like? What type of funding do you usually need? What's your bottleneck, right? And you can kind of play the doctor card that I like to talk about, which is instead of telling people what they need, you can diagnose their problem. And the more types of lending that you have accessible, that you have available, the more ways you can diagnose them. So if you go up to somebody and say, hey, I want to fund your EMD, and they're like, whoa, dude, I don't need my EMD funded. Well, what you could have done is talk to them and figured out, oh, they're a fix and flipper and they actually really struggle to bridge those loans where they only get 75% and they need that other chunk. So instead of trying to force something on them they don't need, how about you go figure out what they need, diagnose the problem, and then actually solve it instead of just shoving something down their throat. Boom. That's how you do it. So warm leads is reaching out to people that you know. What does that look like? Get on the phone. Talk to people face to face. Send a text message. Send a DM. All of those things are fantastic. When you're sending DMs, and yes, I get a lot of these, and I know a lot of you guys that do it, Don't send DMs to randos yet. That's down here. This is up here. Do the warm leads. Talk to people you already know. Too many randos send me DMs and I'm not able to get to all of them, okay? Because I don't even know who you are. And you send like an 80-hour message. How am I supposed to read that stuff? Reach out to people you already know, have that conversation, and what? Figure out who actually might need funding, right? Really easy one, obviously, that I did was I just went to wholesalers that already were doing a lot of deals, right? If somebody's a wholesaler and they've done 2 deals in their life, shout out to you, keep grinding, but you probably don't need a ton of funding right now, right? You don't have a consistent deal flow. But if you're a wholesaler that consistently does 10 plus deals a month, now that's probably somebody that you could be working with potentially. And you might be saying to yourself, well, if they're doing so many deals, why do they need money? Great question. I get asked that a lot. And yet here we are. I'm still funding all those people's deals. Why? Because everybody has a different business, right? Some people absolutely can fund their own EMD, more power to them. Some people have very low amounts of EMD, so you should hope they can fund their EMD. But some people run multiple businesses. They hire a lot of people. They run ads. They send out mailers. They're doing a whole bunch of stuff. And so on the one side, they may just not have that much money liquid, right? If every deal was a $5,000 EMD and you do 20 deals a month, most businesses aren't going to keep $100,000 liquid for every single one of those deals because they can go leverage that money into growing their business, which they do because they're the ones growing their business in the first place and crushing it. So they obviously know what they're doing. That's on the one hand. The other hand is speed, right? If you are a business owner, if you're somebody that, especially that has multiple real estate businesses, you may not have all that money sitting in an account where when you go to get a deal and they say you have to have EMD in by the end of the day, you're like, crap, I've got a couple thousand over here and a couple thousand that are supposed to be coming back, and this deal was supposed to close last week, but it still hasn't closed. Feel that one for sure. Then that's another reason, right? They need speed liquidity. They're like, yo, I've got, I'm worth $1 million or whatever, but I don't have $10,000 right now to put into this EMD because my money's all scattered and it's tied up. That's business, that's life. Find those people. In my personal opinion, if I was to do it again, I would do the exact same thing that I did the first time, which was offer people a discount at the start, build up your credibility, and I'll talk more about that in a moment. So, boom, warm leads. So many people ask me about that. Please rewatch what I just talked about and take it to heart and do it, and then come back to me because now we're going to take you to cold leads, right? Cold leads is what you can do after you've done your warm leads and gotten some deals. Why? In my opinion, in my experience, as I always say, I reached out to cold leads and leveraged my experience with my warm leads. So one of my first cold leads I got, I reached out to them and said, hey, I just did 7 deals in the last week. Here's my systems. Do you want to work with me? Because they had asked for somebody that was able to fund at scale, and I had proof. And guess what? Nobody else had proof. Everybody else reached out to them, but nobody else had proof. So I'm the one that funded their deals then. And guess what? I still fund their deals now, right? We keep that relationship rocking and rolling because I leveraged the warm leads into cold leads. And I continue to do that now, and I've continued to do it in the past where I just connect with cold leads and send them DMs or whatever and just say, hey, this is what I'm doing. If you want to be a part of it, let's talk. And now I have proof to back up my claim because if you were somebody that said, oh, I can fund your EMD no matter what, and then somebody reached out to you and said, yo, I need my EMD funded today, it's $20,000, and you're like, ooh, I don't actually have that money and I don't have contracts and I'm not actually ready. You done messed up, Ron. So go get the cold leads. Now, the third one that is huge for me is free content. And this is, again, boom, warm leads go to cold leads. Warm leads go to free content. Why? Because I'm leveraging, I know I keep writing vertically, sorry, leveraging my experience. So what do I do on social media? If you go on my Facebook right now, if you have me on Facebook and you check out the posts I make, all I do is I talk about what I've already done and everybody goes bananas because they're like, holy crap, they're actually doing something. They're not just talking about it. That's it. It's not that special. All I do is I leverage my experience into free content, and content, just like this YouTube video, stays online forever. So people continue to find it. They continue to reach out to me, continue to ask questions. And it's one of my best lead sources. And it's amazing what that can do. But again, please listen, if you're watching this video, if you post a video saying, hey, I have $5,000 and I'm looking to lend money, you have basically just set yourself on the same playing level as every investor ever. No offense. It's not your fault. It's just that you're not doing it the right way. This is the order that I took that made so much more sense. Because when I make a post, I say, hey, I funded 7 deals in one day. Nobody I know has ever done that. So therefore, that post stands out and people are like, holy crap, comment, like, DM, blah, 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 whatever. But if you just post and say you have $5,000, you've leveled the playing field with every person ever. Whereas if you do something nobody's ever done, it's going to be a big deal. Do you have to be all the way up here? No, right? It can be middle ground, but just leverage what you've done so that people are actually interested in interacting with you. Because again, it's not just that you're going to make money off of it right away. It's that thing's going to be there forever, right? That's why social media and branding is so cool and so important. So this is what I would do as far as growing leads. Honestly, I find it to be pretty simple. Now, a caveat to this is that I absolutely know people that have gone in different orders on this and done well. Shout out to you. But like I said at the beginning, I'm talking about what I would do. This is what I did the first time, and I would do the exact same thing again, and I would like to think it's worked out pretty well. So that's all I have to say about that. Leads, they're fantastic once you get them coming in. It feels miserable when you don't have them coming in, right? And I feel you guys on that, but it takes time and it takes some actual precision. They're not just going to fall into your lap, because if you're waiting around for leads, people like me are going to go get them, right? Because I'm going to go get after those leads. I'm going to go flex the experience, post on social media, reach out, and I'm going to go grab them. And you got to do the same thing, right, to be successful. So I want you guys to take that to heart and understand how important leads are and the best possible way that I know based on my experience of going and getting them. Now, check this out. This is some mind-boggling stuff. Everything that I've talked about, all 3 steps so far, I still have not mentioned money at all or getting set up. Why haven't I done that? Because you do not need money to do anything that I just talked about. All right? What do I mean? Well, what was step 1? Here's our quick little review before we get into the next topic. What was step 1, right? Step 1 was just understanding the stuff about lending. You don't need money for that. You just need to go online, spend some time reading some books, watching some videos, maybe watching this video, getting some stuff out of it, okay? That was step 1. Now, step 2 is understanding and figuring out who your actual prospects are, who you're going to be lending to. That doesn't require any money either, right? Networking, research, stuff like that. Step 3 was growing your leads, okay? What did that say? It said network, do warm outreach, do cold outreach, post on social media for free. So you still didn't need any money for all of that. But you're like, wait, now I have leads, but I don't have any money to fund the deals. Perfect. I hope that you are thinking that exact thing right now. Because if you are, that means you listened and you're crushing it. Because this is all you have to do now. Go find somebody with money. What if you don't know anybody with money? It's not hard. What do I mean by that? This will be kind of my in-between step here, I guess, is getting things funded. Now, to get things funded, all you need is a lead, right? So, if you're watching this and you are a part of our free community that you can check out in the link down in the description, or you're a part of any Facebook communities or anything like that, then you know that if you go on there, right, and you posted right now in our community and said, hey, I have a deal, it's $10,000 EMD, they're ready to go, they're ready to get it funded today, I just need the money, you will get destroyed with people sending you DMs. Why? Because you get great returns from EMD, and it's very easy to find the people with money and make that connection. No problemo. And specifically, I've said this before, I fund those deals with people. I have an affiliate program, right? Affiliate, it's like, you could call this affiliate / connector. Same vibe. Okay? And when you do that, you can go split the deal or whatever somebody's funds, situation looks like and have no money. Fantastic. And on top of that, what? On top of that, you also get to learn how a transaction actually works. Because if you haven't done it, you should go split the money or whatever with somebody that has done it so that you can learn from them. All right? That's what I would suggest. Again, that's what I would do if I did it again. So affiliate / connector fee, whatever, you can get that done without any money. I've already done a video on that exact thing. Should be somewhere up here to watch that video about how you can work with me without any money. And everything that we've done so far, you can take to heart and do with exactly that. But once you have your leads, once you actually have a stronghold on things, now the 4th step is you can start spending a little bit of money. It's still not that much money, almost none actually, but it takes a little bit more time and effort to get these things set up. And this is actually the steps that you need to take to start your business, which I do have another video right up there about getting started, and it's going to be a couple things, right? So getting started is going to require, number 1, an LLC. I'm not going to give you guys a crash course on exactly how to set up your LLCs because I've only done it one way, and so I'm not able to tell you if there's another way to do it better, but you can talk to specific people that can actually give you some more help on that. But setting up an LLC, setting up a bank account. We use Relay because they are insanely helpful. There's no minimums. You can have like 25 accounts in there, and the wire fees are only $5, which is the cheapest wire fees of any wire fees ever. So that's the bank I use, and I would recommend that you do the same. But you can't open a banking account with Relay until you have an LLC. So you got to get the LLC open. You got to have something to run that under. You might be able to do personal accounts with Relay. I don't know, but yeah, just go ahead and do it correctly. So LLC, we've got a bank account. Now, identifying funds can be done around here. Now, this is important because, again, there's two sides of the equation here. The first side of the equation is kind of what I would call like the affiliate, the connector, or what you could call like the learning stage, which is, hey, I'm going to go work with me and use my funds, or hey, I'm going to go work with somebody else and use their funds, and I'll just bring the lead and they'll teach me how to get the deal done. Fantastic. But just like with anything, right, the difference between affiliates and running your own business is that once you learn how to get deals, how to get leads, you've done some deals, you got a couple under your belt, you're probably not going to want to come to use my money necessarily when maybe you could go raise your own money at a lower rate. More power to you. You should definitely do that. And when you do, then you got to go raise your own funds. So that's all part of networking. That's all about real estate 101, right? You can do those things. And I'll tell you, again, from my experience, these funds will show up if you're crushing deals. Guaranteed. People will randomly DM you and be like, yo, I've got $1 million and I want to fund your deals. You don't believe me, but I promise it happens all the time. It's just a result of having leads. That's all it is. And then the last one that I would say is the least important when you're getting started, but probably the most important overall is getting a CRM, right? CRM, Customer Relations Manager. I figured that out last time. I didn't know what it stood for, but I'm pretty sure that's right now. Customer Relations Manager. CRM is what is actually going to handle all of your leads. So if you are scaling a business, you cannot be writing your leads down in a notebook or an Excel sheet or whatever if you want to make it to the next level. So jump inside of a CRM, use that, and CRMs have a bunch of crazy automations, right? So my CRM that I use personally is called Button Leads, and it has a bunch of automations specifically for Gator lending. There's a link down in the description for Button Leads. They crush it, and they'll do a free onboarding call with you to talk about it. But the automations for mine send out text messages to the lender. They send text messages to the borrower, text messages to the affiliate. They send out contracts automatically. They send emails to, it does so many things. I don't do any of it. It's literally all automatic. And it's crazy. Why? Because if I got 5 deals coming in, I do not have time to type up every single contract, right? I don't have time for that. I'm trying to scale. And so when you are ready to scale, a CRM is the way to do it for sure. So this is my step number 4, I guess I'll call it, for getting started, is just getting those things established, right? You don't have to do this right off the bat. Does it hurt to do it? Not at all, but CRMs cost money. Funds obviously kind of take a little bit of time. LLC costs a little bit of money, a couple $100 I think to get one opened up. The Relay Bank is actually free, so that's dope. But this stuff costs a little bit of money, and I want people to be able to get into this stuff with absolutely zero money if you need to, and you absolutely can, like I've been saying. So that's why I put this as step 4. So it's kind of, a little bit down the line. Okay, so that was step 4 that we just covered here, kind of getting all of your stuff set up. And I'm kind of for step 5, I'm just going to dive into a little bit more with like the CRM and systems. And all of that's going to be centered around scaling. So scaling is kind of a fun business word, right? Basically what I'm talking about is just how can we take this and actually turn it into something that's going to continue to grow, which is all of our goals. And so if you're funding, 1 deal a month every month for the next 5 years, you're not really scaling, but you might be bringing in some okay income. And for some of you guys, that might be great, right? But I would say in general, the goal is to scale, right? It's to continue to grow, continue to level up, because that's how you push yourself, make more money, and learn more. And so I want to share with you guys a couple things about scaling that I've learned. First of them, again, like I said, is CRM/systems. And I have found this to be incredibly important. I've had multiple people that I work with reach out and say that they want to work with me specifically because of these systems that I have in place, right? Because I have automated follow-up. I have automatic contracts going out. I have automatic reminders. All of those systems make people a lot more comfortable because not only does it keep them accountable and keep me accountable, but it also lets them know this probably isn't my first time, right? Things like a website, forms to fill out. Those are all systems that can help you out and scale. And so that's why I think this stuff is so important. Another big one for me in scaling is really the first step that I talked about, which is learning and understanding all the different types of lending. Because for me personally, I started with small deals, and I want that to grow to big deals. Conceptually, very simple. But let me make a little comparison or analogy for you guys, right? So when people get into real estate, they're typically going to start with single family, whether it's a flip or a buy and hold or something like that. Average single family house, between $300,000 and $600,000, something like that, right? And so let's just talk about appreciation for somewhat easy math. If you don't like math like me, maybe it's not the easiest math, but let's say that over 10 years, it appreciates 10%, right? That would mean that a $500,000 house, after 10 years, I said, right? It appreciated 10%, so now it's worth $550,000, which means that you've gained plus $50K. Not too shabby. But if we're sticking with percentages, or the ratio here, and you were to buy a $5 million apartment complex and it was to go up 10%, that would be what? 5.5, right? 5.5 million. So with that same increase, you've gone from making 50K to making 500K. Pretty big difference, right? 10x. Shout out Grant Cardone. Why is that important? Because it's the same vibes over here, right? Small deals versus big deals. 2 months ago, I had 31 deals in escrow at once. It was a bit much. It was a lot of deals. I'm very grateful that I could have that many deals in escrow, but it was a bit much, okay? Now, of those 31 deals, a lot of those deals were like $500, $1,000, $1,500 EMD, and it really stacked up. Personally, the way that I'm scaling is I'm starting to go from the smaller deals to the bigger deals. So now I'm doing more 15, 20, 50, $100,000 EMDs and double closings and things like that. Why? Because of the same thing we're talking about here, right? If I was to do one $20,000 deal, I'm making the same amount of money as if I do 20 $1,000 deals, except I have 20 times less to worry about. It seems really obvious, but for some reason, I think I'll put it this way. It's twofold. One of the reasons is that there's just a lot more of those smaller EMD deals. And the other reason is maybe, just access to funds and really an understanding of the safety aspect, because it's, you could screw up on $1,000 and hopefully your life's not going to end. But if you screw up on, $100,000, you're putting yourself in a little bit tougher of a spot. So that's how I'm scaling, is smaller to bigger deals. If you guys run into bigger deals you can't fund, just come bring them to me and we'll do them together. And you definitely make more money because those percentages just equal a lot more, right? It's just simple math. And that's really the fifth step. I think if you are watching this video and you're actually at this fifth step, you're ahead of the game, you're crushing it. This is like where I'm just getting into and kind of still figuring things out, is actually scaling stuff. But it's absolutely, crucial to growing a business, right? But the first 4 steps that I talked about, I think are going to get most of you guys more than started and rocking and rolling. So that, folks, is easily everything that you're going to need to get started with the lending business. There's going to be things along the way, right? Things that I didn't talk about specifically in this video that are way more in depth, like contracts, right? And protecting yourself. Like I mentioned, I'm going to be doing videos and separate things on that because you got to go really in depth on it. I need to go sit down at a computer and kind of walk you through some stuff. But this is absolutely the steps on getting started. And when people reach out to me and say, I still can't find any deals or whatever, like, please don't let me hear that and then go on your social media or connect with you and find that you're not following the steps that I talked about. Because although, again, like I said, you can do whatever the heck you want, I know what I've done works, and I want other people to be able to replicate that stuff, and I want you to be able to learn from it. So check that stuff out. If you aren't already in the Financial Foundations community that we just started, go ahead and jump on that one. It's going to be the first link in the description. We want you guys to join in. It's totally free. We do more private live Q&As and things like that in there so you guys can ask your questions. If you have any other questions, just go ahead and chuck it down in the comment section below. I'll check it out. I'll do my best to get back to you. I want everybody to succeed in lending, business, or whatever the heck else it is that you're working on. And so I hope this video was helpful, and I will see you guys on the next one.